Revealed, family disinvites you from $65,000 wedding, but amazing hidden truth will surprise you. The phone call had left Sarah trembling, each word stabbing deeper than the last. She had been disinvited from her sister's extravagant $65,000 wedding. No longer the cherished sister, just an outsider. The irony of her dignified life as a dedicated elementary school teacher in a humble classroom screamed in contrast to her relative's lavish lifestyle. Hurt and confusion tangled in her chest. Like the echo of a distant heartbeat, the glimmering chandeliers overhead felt worlds away from the scuffed linoleum of her school. Who would she be without family? What did that say about her worth? Days before the wedding, Sarah buried herself in her lesson plans, her mind racing and fingers clenching paper as if it were a lifeline. She hated feeling this way, like a lonely island, rejected not for her choices, but for existing outside the narrow lines drawn by her family. Their expectations twisted into chains that exactly pinned her personality, snuffing out the vibrant shades of caring she wielded in her classroom. Each child's smile reminded her of the love she poured into them, yet it carried a bitter aftertaste. Would she be remembered or celebrated? As she climbed up to her grandmother's attic to sort through belongings filled with nostalgia, a hidden treasure clinked as she sorted through the cardboard boxes. She brushed dust from the cover of an old family journal, its pages yellowed and bearing the weight of time. When she opened it, stories of artistry and rejection leapt forth. Her grandmother's dreams were thwarted by their family's rigid standards. Look at how society dictated her worth. Sarah's heart ached with recognition. It was a legacy she had never known, woven with the deep thread of artistry muted by wealth's clutches. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With trembling fingers, Sarah turned the pages, each entry further fueling her determination. The museum was glowing in her mind, a vibrant exhibition that would honor her grandmother, showcasing together the stories of others lost in the whispers of affluence. This was her voice, her claim. Trouble brewed, though. Her relatives stiffened with disdain whenever her name was mentioned. They guarded their pristine image against the world that threatened to expose the truth, and Sarah's newfound passion ignited unease within her family. They could not bear the thought of her bringing light to their darkness. On the eve of the wedding, Sarah's phone vibrated with urgency, a familiar name flashing across the screen. It was her childhood friend, ready to share secrets dug deep within family shadows. A revelation was imminent and could unravel everything her family had fought to conceal. With bated breath, Sarah was left pondering, should she expose their betrayal? Or would this only widen the rift that her grandmother's legacy had begun to heal? She looked down at her hands resting on the journal, feeling both empowered and afraid. Tomorrow would bring choices that could redefine her place in a family she had long struggled to accept or abandon. The feeling wrapped around her like mist, growing heavier, suffocating as dawn approached, leaving her teetering on the edge of a life-altering decision. The morning light seeped through the gaps in Sarah's curtains, casting a warm glow on the surfaces cluttered with remnants of yesterday's chaos. Today wouldn't just mark her sister's wedding, it would mark a pivotal moment in her life. The weight of the decision loomed heavily, while shadows of uncertainty danced around her mind. Should she confront her family with this newfound knowledge, or should she bury it to keep the fragile peace intact? With a flick of her wrist, she silenced her phone, pushing aside the noise, focusing on the reflections in her grandmother's journal. Each word etched in faded ink served as a window to a past that held more than mere tales. It was a powerful testament to the fight against denial. Her grandmother had paved the way through heartbreak, a life filled with repressed hopes and silenced dreams. It sparked within Sarah a fervor she didn't know she possessed. Dressed in a simple yet elegant attire that mirrored her values, Sarah stepped out of her home, the air tinged with anticipation. She was not the outsider, Rather, she was armed with the strength of her grandmother's legacy and the truth she intended to safeguard. Every step to the venue echoed with a dual purpose: to celebrate, but also to stand against the silent oppression that had dulled their family for generations. As she entered the venue, the resplendent decorations and opulent atmosphere struck a stark contrast to the simplicity she embraced. Laughter echoed like a cruel symphony, the clinking of glasses punctuating moments that felt disturbingly hollow to her. Her heart raced as she made her way to the guest list, scanning for familiar faces while grappling with a sense of profound isolation. She recognized their smiles and the laughter they shared as a protective veneer, hiding the judgment they cast upon her very being. Anticipation hung in the air, and soon her sister appeared, radiant as ever, ushering a wave of affection in Sarah's direction. That lingering bond that once felt impenetrable shimmered before her, but doubts spiraled in her mind. Was she prepared to risk it all for something greater? At that moment, her childhood friend approached, their eyes holding an understanding that transcended words. "You ready for this?" they whispered, a tension coursing between them. Sarah nodded, her voice hitching in her throat. The independent spirit of resilience surged within her as they stood against a backdrop of luxurious chaos. The conversation that was brewing held the potential to unleash a floodgate, a revelation that might shift the narrative of her family forever. But as the ceremony unfolded, Sarah's resolve began to waver. Cradled by familial expectations and the echoes of past betrayals, the urge to retreat and hide within the comfort of obscurity tugged at her deeply. Yet, deep within, the seeds of her grandmother's spirit urged her forward. She had power in the soles of her shoes, in the pen that wrote their family history, and in the choices she could make. As the first toast was raised, filled with sweet nothings about love and unity, Sarah felt a jolt of determination. Would she dare to stand up and share the truth she held? The moment was approaching, fraught with uncertainty but also brimming with potential. Unbeknownst to the revelers, it was a celebration that could pivot between wedding bliss and confrontation. In the quiet that followed the heartfelt toast, Sarah gathered her voice, feeling battles waged within her. Facing her family would not only reveal her hidden depths, but challenge a legacy shrouded in silence. As she inhaled deeply, her nerves electrified, she prepared to take the step that could redefine everything, aware that her next words would carry echoes far beyond this moment. As she started to speak, the crowd's attention shifted, eyes landing on her like the light that pierced through fog. Would they accept her truth, or would it rend the very fabric of their family? The resolution was near, and with it, the impending clash between love and reality loomed just overhead, a beautiful chaos, aching to unfold. Sarah took a breath, allowing the noise around her to fade as she focused inward. The room, rich with colors and cacophony, began to resemble a distant landscape, blurring at the edges. Each heartbeat resonated in her ears, propelling her determination to speak. The resonance wasn't just anxiety, it was a call to action, a reminder that this moment was hers to claim. The words she grappled with were more than mere sentences, they were the seeds of a truth that had been buried for far too long. Shifting her weight, she felt the fabric of her attire clinging to her shoulders, a tangible representation of all that she wore: history, expectations, and the heavy mantle of her grandmother's unfulfilled promises. This was not just about her sister's wedding, it was the moment she defined herself against the legacy of silence that had shackled her family for generations. "Can I have everyone's attention, please?" Her voice emerged, trembling but resolute. For an instant, anticipation rippled through the crowd, and every eye that fell upon her seemed to nibble away at both her resolve and her fears. As she stood before them, the once familiar faces morphed into a collage of uncertainties, confusion intermingled with curiosity. She realized she no longer felt like an outsider. Instead, she was the bearer of truth, holding out the possibility for both destruction and rebirth. Clenching her fists, she centered her thoughts, filtering through her emotions like arguing streams within her consciousness. "I need to share something important," she ventured, her gaze anchoring on her sister, who had stilled amidst the laughter. something that has weighed on me for years, and something I believe needs to be addressed for our family to heal." The words fell from her lips like stones, each a deliberate commitment to the path she was treading. As the murmurs swept through the room, she caught the frantic glances of her relatives, hovering somewhere between disbelief and anxiety. "I've discovered," she started, measuring her syllables, "that many of our family stories have been woven with threads of untruths. Deceptions that have shaped us without our consent. We can no longer live in the shadows." She could feel the energy shift, tension wrapping tighter around her chest. Confrontational whispers flitted through the crowd like startled birds. Her childhood friend's reassuring stare held her steady, reminding her of their prior conversations about courage and self-expression. Her grandmother's journal had unlocked this newfound strength, where once there had only been fear. Exploring the depths of her grandmother's life had been a catalyst for her realization. It wasn't enough to adhere to damaging roles passed through the generations. To find her voice, she had to expose the toxic veil that had muffled their truth. "Mom," she said, glancing at the woman who had been her guiding light and, at times, her greatest critic, "we can't keep pretending. I learned about the family secret, certain truths that will affect our relationship going forward. The history of suppression isn't something we can just gloss over any longer." Gasps of incredulity rolled through the room, sparking a charge of energy she had never before felt. The reality she had anticipated, the potential fallout, tingled with both dread and exhilaration. It wasn't merely about her distress, it was about freeing them all, granting her family a chance to rise. The culmination of her effort hung delicately in the air as her mother's brow furrowed, the graceful mask of celebration slipping away to reveal the woman who also bore the weight of unspoken truths. "Sarah," her mother's voice trembled, granting her an opening, but before she could respond, her sister raised a hand, offering the silent unity of their familial bond. The din of the event faded into a constellation of moments, all now converging towards Sarah's reckoning. What would they say? Would respect for her newfound strength overshadow their inherited resistance? The critical moment had arrived, burdened with possibility. With intensity at its peak, Sarah readied herself for the impending storm. She was terrified yet invigorated, standing on a precipice that could redefine not just her standing within the family dynamic, but alter their collective legacy, unbeknownst to her. She had become the embodiment of her grandmother's unfulfilled desires, poised to shatter the deceptive stillness binding them all. Would they embrace the truth or close ranks? And as she braced for their reaction, a pang of intuition cautioned her. The real battle was yet to come. The silence that fell over the room was almost palpable, suspended in time like a breath held too long. Sarah's heart raced, its thundering rhythm contrasting sharply with the uneasy stillness of her family. She could see the confusion etched on their faces, the frayed threads of misunderstanding threatening to unravel under the weight of her revelations. In that moment, doubt flickered across her mind. Had she truly been heard, or was this simply the end of yet another cycle of denial? "Sarah," her mother finally spoke, her tone a mix of caution and worry. "What secrets are you talking about?" The question hung heavy, an invitation wrapped in anxiety. The room shifted, tension bridging the gap between uncertainty and anticipation. "I found Grandma's journal," Sarah replied, finding strength within her own vulnerability. "It's not just her story. It's a map of our family's hidden pain, the lies that shaped our lives. If we don't confront this now, we'll be trapped in the same narrative forever." Ripples of discomfort surged through her relatives as her words landed. The concept of history as a burden, a tangled web of unshared truths, was not easy to digest. Anger flickered in her mother's eyes, stirring old resentments. The brunt of family responsibility had always fallen on her shoulders, both a blessing and a curse. "The past is in the past," her mother said, raising her voice just above a whisper. "Why open old wounds? We've moved on." But beneath her mother's protestations, Sarah sensed a shroud of fear. Perhaps her mother, too, had felt the weight of unspoken truths. 4 years of therapy whispered cautions in Sarah's mind. Every moment of growth leaned heavily on vulnerability, She couldn't allow herself to slip back into silence. Mom, moving on doesn't mean forgetting. I believe understanding our truth can set us free. Her sister's hand clasped tightly around her wrist, a subtle gesture of solidarity that pumped adrenaline through her veins. Sarah realized, then, that her courage might not just affect her but also those she loved. This wasn't merely a defense of her own identity, it was a fight for everyone in the room to reclaim their narrative. Look, I'm not trying to tear us apart, she continued, her tone softening. But if we keep brushing things under the rug, we'll never heal. I don't want to stand here at family gatherings, smiling and pretending we're okay when we're not. We owe it to ourselves and to Grandma to honor the truth of our past. In the back row, her uncle's brow furrowed deeper, anxiety brewing like a brewing storm cloud. He had been privy to bits of family history, shrouded in whispers, half-truths, and uncomfortable glances. Sarah could read the questions unfolding in his mind, mirroring her own. Was fear of further fracture truly allowing them to thrive? Or were they all merely sustaining an illusion? Fear is a strong motivator, isn't it? He finally said, a tremor in his voice, directed both at her mother and the collective family. But what happens when fear controls us? The truth may sting, but it will ultimately heal if we let it. His words sparked a flicker of hope inside Sarah. Voices began to rise in unison, some defending the status quo, others taking steps toward openness. She found herself standing at the center of a verbal battleground, each emotion swirling into the air, leaving her dangerously exposed. As they argued, a wave of determination washed over her. Maybe they would round towards conflict. Perhaps the first step toward healing lay in navigating this discomfort together. But could they truly face what was coming? She reflected on the essence of courage, not just speaking the truth, but remaining present amid backlash, believing in the agency of revelation. This moment was only the beginning. Little did she know, beneath the turmoil in the room, sparks of transformation were igniting. Momentum churned around her, ready to propel her family along a path toward honesty. Would they seize this moment to forge a new collective identity, or would they select silence once again, leaving her to navigate this tumult alone? The question resonated in the depths of her being, pulling her deeper into the unfolding drama. How far would she need to go to ensure that the next chapter of her family didn't mirror the scars of generations lost in secrecy? The tension in the air thickened as Sarah braced herself for the forthcoming pushback. As arguments erupted, she seized the opportunity to refine her thoughts, each rebuttal sharpening her resolve. She could feel self-doubt creeping in, an unwelcome guest at a critical moment. But she reminded herself that to retreat now would be a disservice not just to herself, but to generations who had faced the same trials of silence. Why are you so determined to dig up the past? Her mother challenged, lips pressed tight, eyes narrowed. Sarah heard the fear laced in her voice, a fear of judgment and of the unknown consequences that confronting their history could bring. In that pang of frustration, Sarah glimpsed her own journey, a mirror reflecting every painful question she had dared to confront in therapy. It became crucial to find a bridge between their emotions and reason. I'm determined because I believe we deserve more than a facade, Sarah implored, fighting the urge to raise her voice. We need to strip away the layers, reveal what we've kept hidden, not just from the world, but from each other. Her uncle's nod reassured her that not everyone feared the truth. But even with allies, the majority seemed resistant, clinging to the comfort of fabrications that bound them like chains. She turned to her sister, who silently supported her with an unwavering gaze. The shift in her posture told Sarah this was a shared burden, a decision not made lightly. Her sister was also stepping into a role she didn't quite feel prepared for but, nonetheless, felt compelled to embrace. I understand this is uncomfortable, Sarah continued, her voice steadied by newfound clarity. But the act of concealment doesn't protect us, it only isolates us. Please, look at this from a different perspective. What if diving into our past opens doors we didn't know existed? What if we find a framework for future generations to breathe? The room pulsed with uncertainty. A few family members exchanged glances, bubbling beneath the surface, questioning the status quo that had governed their interactions for far too long. Still, her mother's expression remained resolute. "Enough, Sarah," her mother finally interjected, an ultimatum wrapped in her anguished tone. "You're being selfish with your need to explore this. Can you not see how painful it is for those who just want to move forward?" The lump in her mother's throat was evident, revealing the deeper cracks that fragmented their spirits. Caught between compassion for her mother and the drive to dismantle their emotional barricades, Sarah's heart raced. Was wanting to heal selfish? Just as she was about to respond, a flood of emotion hit her with clarity, the weight of their collective suffering. Sacrificing comfort for truth felt daunting. Yet, perhaps the most meaningful confrontation lay in wrestling with these feelings together. "Mom, I'm not denying any of the pain," Sarah said softly. "I want to confront it with you. If we do this as a family, we can start understanding each other instead of hiding behind walls. It doesn't have to be just you and me alone. This can be an opportunity for us all to find freedom." A stir of apprehension rippled through the room, but Sarah sensed something had shifted, possibility tempered with hope. If her family united in this challenge rather than retreated into their corners, they might land somewhere transformative. Suddenly, her uncle's voice rose above the panicked murmurs. "What is more selfish? Exposing the truth or choking on secrets that could ruin future happiness? If we dive into difficult waters together, we may just find the strength we've lacked." This revelation ignited more sparks. The room buzzed with a charged atmosphere as collective reflections broadened their perspectives. Sarah understood this was no longer just her journey. It was a shared awakening, a chance to embrace the complex legacy their family had woven, complete with both thorns and blossoms. A shared awakening, Sarah whispered to herself. Resolutely, she committed to guiding them into the tumultuous waters ahead. She might not know what lay at the bottom, but drowning was no longer an option. Just as she thought unity might be within reach, a piercing tone broke through the hesitant optimism. "I don't care if you find something therapeutic. I want things to stay the same." It was her mother again, anchoring them to the past with a fierceness that startled everyone. Heart pounding, she recognized the true challenge dawned upon her. Would she truly be able to confront the depths of her mother's fear? Determined to press on, her thoughts sharpened. It was time to delve deeper and unlock the narrative her family had shackled for far too long. Would she find the courage to dive into the wounds that lay beneath, or would bearing the weight of her family's past prove too unbearable once more? The air hung heavy with an unseen weight, suffocating the hope that just flickered into life. Sarah's pulse quickened, each heartbeat pounding a question into her consciousness. How could she possibly navigate a journey full of opposing fears and stubborn loyalties? She noted the clenched fists and crossed arms, her family members trapped between the desire for enlightenment and the fear of unearthing buried secrets. "Let us not delude ourselves," her mother snapped, her face tightened with a mixture of anguish and fury. "Everything you're suggesting threatens to tear the fabric of what binds us. What if we're just better off forgetting?" Forgetting. The word echoed in Sarah's mind, its resonance amplifying across the years of silence they had maintained. But as she stared into her mother's troubled eyes, the futility of forgetting gnawed at her. Wasn't there a possibility that truth, no matter how uncomfortable, could weave them closer rather than tear them apart? A flicker of determination ignited inside her, grappling with her thoughts. She inhaled deeply and began to cultivate her thoughts. "Mom, avoiding this conversation is like patching a hole in a sinking boat. We're still going to drown if we don't address the water pouring in." The room fell into a heavy silence. Sarah found herself standing before a battlefield, spearheading a campaign for understanding amidst deep-rooted fears. Each moment seemed to stretch infinitely, rife with unspoken words and frozen expressions. With a sudden surge of courage, she ventured into the emotional minefield one more time. "How many times have you felt unheard? How many times have we tiptoed around each other because we were afraid of what the truth might unleash?" Each question poured from her like water released from a dam. "We can continue this charade, or we can finally forge a path toward healing. It's your choice. I'm here to carry this burden alongside you, not to push you into it alone." Her mother's eyes flickered, a glint of uncertainty betraying her firm stance. "You think this is easy?" she muttered, but her gravelly tone held a tremor of vulnerability. "No," Sarah replied, softening her voice. "But it's necessary. Embracing our past can set us free, and if there's one thing I've learned, it's that we can only move forward if we handle what's behind us first." The emotional barrier around the room felt less solid now. Her uncle, the earlier supporter, leaned forward slightly, eyes sparkling with questions he had kept concealed, while other family members exchanged glances of deep contemplation. It surprised Sarah. This was not a unified front in favor of tradition, but rather a fracturing facade, cracks forming where previous resistance had stood resolute. She took a step forward, locking eyes with her sister. "I know you're unsettled, too. We have harmony in the discomfort if we stand together. What is left for us if we merely accept the status quo?" Her sister's brow furrowed as she wrestled with hesitations. But when their gazes met, the sparks of shared vulnerability connected them in a way that spoke volumes. Then she saw it, the decision flickering in her sister's eyes. This was larger than individual fears. It merged into a convergence of familial futures laid bare. "Okay," her sister finally spoke, her voice trembling yet resolute. "I'll follow you, Sarah. But we have to do this together." As her sister resolved to accompany her into the impending struggles, the charged air shifted again, whispers of potential unraveling the layers of tension. But before Sarah could take a breath of relief, her mother's sharp voice cut back in. "And what if digging into the past unearths more pain?" The defiance quaked beneath her mother's gaze, and Sarah recognized the openly raw emotions concealed within her resistance. What if they stumbled into wounds that would shatter their fragile resolve? This question hung in the air, along with the unfurling hope of recovery. Sarah's heart raced, balancing on the precipice of a revelation that could pivot their path. Would this exploration bring agony, or was it the spark they needed to ignite change? The choice loomed like a propelling force, urging her forward into the uncertain depths of their shared history. "Maybe it's time we confront more than just our past," she urged, heart thrumming in unison with the tumultuous atmosphere. "What if confronting it reveals hidden strengths we never knew we had?" Would this be the moment they collectively refused to be defined by fear? The moment that fear could either carve their identities apart or shape an unbreakable bond? With that question suspended in the air, she steeled herself. There was no retreat from this next step, only an embrace of the unknown that lay ahead. The air in the room shifted again, as if the weight of unspoken truths hovered just out of reach. Sarah felt the intensity of the moment wrap around her like a suffocating cloak. Her heartbeat echoed in her ears, punctuating the silence that crept in after her mother's challenge. Would they really unearth deep-seated pain? But with every ounce of her being, she understood that to break free from the chains of their past, they needed to confront it courageously. "I'm not asking for an easy road. I'm asking for honesty," Sarah said, her voice steady. The tension intertwined with anticipation. "Every one of us has a story that we've hidden for too long. Let us uncover them together." The room remained still, like a tableau frozen in time. The unyielding faces around her revealed a range of internal conflicts, hope mingled with fear, curiosity juxtaposed with denial. A weighty silence stretched until her uncle cleared his throat, breaking the deadlock. "Sarah," he began, eyes scanning the room, "what you're suggesting is monumental. What if all that we reveal will change not just how we see ourselves, but how our family legacy will be shaped? What if there are things better left buried?" Buried. The word struck her with unexpected force. It was the very essence of their struggle, the thing they all feared most. But the irony was now glaring. Avoidance could never truly erase the past. It merely masked reality with a thin layer of silence. "Isn't the alternative worse?" Sarah retorted, the flame within her stronger than ever. "Living in the shadow of our secrets isn't living at all. I refuse to let our family be defined by ghosts of our making. Each revelation may hurt, but it could also liberate us." Her sister met her gaze again, and though her expression was still laced with uncertainty, Sarah could see a spark of solidarity, a flicker of shared purpose. It resonated deeply within her, sparking a cascade of interconnected emotions within the group. As Sarah scanned the room, she recognized the muted flickers of acceptance, along with still-present resistance. The undertow of emotions morphed into a current of resolve. The vulnerabilities lurking beneath their harsh claims were beginning to surface. Her mother's face softened momentarily as she battled with the weight of her past. "You believe confronting the past will make us strong?" she asked, a hint of skepticism threading through her tone. "Yes," Sarah asserted, her voice stronger, more compelling. "Because the strength to confront it builds connection. Hiding our wounds only deepens them. If we face the storm together, we can survive it." An electric silence ensued as Sarah's words stirred the air. In that heartbeat, she envisioned the possibilities emerging from dismantling the fortress of denial. What if the pain she feared was merely the doorway to a richer understanding of their shared existence? The silence felt like a knife cutting through the tension. "Maybe you're right," her uncle admitted, the admission thick with contemplation. "Facing it may just reveal our truths, hidden capabilities, and the resilience we never knew existed." There was hesitation, but the commitment hung ripe in the air. "Then let us set the stage," Sarah suggested, her determination crystallizing into an actionable plan. "Let us create a timeline of events, a family tree that is not just names, but stories that shape our lineage. One by one, we'll confront our legacy." Her mother shifted slightly, and Sarah sensed a crack forming in her defenses. "What if we wrote out our narratives, our hidden truths, then came together to share them?" she suddenly proposed. It was an opening, a tentative acknowledgement of the possibility of vulnerability. The notion seemed to hover in the air, testing the waters of their commitment. Would they embrace this new endeavor? Would they truly expose themselves as they dismantled the barricades of silence? With a newfound resolve gathering momentum, Sarah faced her family, a fierce light in her eyes. "It's time we reclaim our narrative together." The room full of faces reflected a rich tapestry of emotions. Each gaze flickered between doubt and acceptance, each pulse synchronized to the unfolding possibility of transformation. Perhaps what lay ahead was more than a confrontation with the past. It could be an awakening, an unveiling of hidden strengths, stories, and ultimately of self. But as Sarah deliberated the step they were about to take, a new question ignited within her. What if uncovering their stories revealed truths that didn't just unite them, but also shattered the very foundation they stood upon? The moment of evolution loomed closer, ready to expose not just their shared history, but also the potential of rediscovery. Would they embrace the change, or would they retake the veil of silence? The undeniable challenge now faced them, and it beckoned with an electrifying allure, urging them toward the unknown. The meeting lingered in the air, a palpable tension woven into each breath taken by the family. Sarah could feel the weight of unfinished business pressing against her chest, yet there was an undeniable urgency, an unmistakable draw toward the intimacy of shared truths. This gathering was not merely an act of defiance against the past, it was a plunge into the unknown depths of their own identities. She wondered if they were ready to navigate the turbulent waters that lay ahead. As the idea of personal narratives resonated, she began to map out her own. Her heart raced as she envisioned writing down her experiences, her struggles. What if she could capture the complexity of her childhood feelings, the sadness and confusion, the moments of both kindness and harshness? The thought electrified her conviction. Exposing her own vulnerabilities would set a precedent for others, an example that perhaps they could all follow. "Let us establish a timeline. I will start by writing down my own truths," Sarah proposed, her gaze steady on her family's contemplative faces. "This isn't just about nostalgia, it's a cathartic exercise toward authenticity." She could sense the uncomfortably shifting dynamics in the room. "I will go first," she added, determination brimming in her voice. "I'll share how I felt lost between expectations and my own desires for years. I've hidden so much from even myself. As I reveal my story, I hope it will ignite a flame in all of you." A collective breath was held in response to her words, a mixture of fear and curiosity that echoed in their exhalations. Sarah's cousin, Jenna, who had been silent until now, shifted. And what about the consequences? She asked, her voice tiny but resonant. What if we open wounds that can't heal? In that moment, Sarah hesitated, her own fears bubbling to the surface. What if her truths splintered their already fragile family structure? But isn't keeping them hidden more damaging? We want connection, not isolation. We can't let fear dictate our narratives any longer, she replied, forcing herself to stand firm against the uncertainty surrounding them. After long moments of palpable silence, her mother sighed, the sound heavy with a mixture of resignation and intrigue. I can share my own struggles with being the caretaker, she murmured, eyes suddenly glistening. I thought stoicism was my strength, but in reality, it's become a barrier. Sarah nodded vigorously, overwhelmed by the realization that the willingness to unravel these layers sparked a flicker of hope within her family. Perhaps vulnerability could be their new strength. Her uncle followed suit, revealing conflicts he never thought he would share, the regrets he carried, the dreams left unpursued. With each narrative blooming into the open, Sarah felt the knot in her heart loosen. This wasn't just about them uncovering hidden truths. It was the dawning of understanding, gratitude for shared imperfection, a collective embrace of the mess they called family. Yet, an undertow of anxiety lingered. Had they prepared themselves adequately for what might surface? As her family began to share, Sarah witnessed the power of each revelation weave tightly around their initial fears. Still, a new question buzzed insistently in her mind. What truths were buried too deeply to unearth? Could revelations transform familial bonds, or would exposing their deepest fears fracture the already strained connections further? The intensity of this moment grew unbearable. This was no longer merely a gathering for the sake of recognition. They were at the brink of a transformative milestone. And with each poignant sharing, she could feel the stakes rising. Can we handle what's about to come? Sarah whispered to herself, the unsettling prospect of hidden betrayals igniting an internal battle, sending whispers of apprehension through her mind. She took a deep breath, steeling herself. Understanding was becoming clearer. This journey would not only unearth past secrets, but could also redefine who they were meant to be as individuals and as a family. As the unraveling continued, Sarah could sense they were on the precipice of something monumental, something that could either unite them forever or expose rifts irreparable. In that instant, the gravity of their discussions shifted. Moments of reflection overlaid feelings of vulnerability. This was about more than truths. It was about sewing together a foundation of trust and resilience. The next words could fall into the abyss of despair. Just as Sarah prepared to reveal her final reflection, the door creaked softly. An unexpected visitor, a figure from their shared past, stepped into the room, bringing with them a palpable tension that had been avoided. What storm of truths would this newcomer unleash? The figure that entered the room was Claire, Sarah's estranged sister. Unannounced, she looked vulnerable yet steely, the shadows of their past cast heavily upon her shoulders. Tension thickened in the air as the family turned, visibly unsettled by her unexpected presence. A mixture of relief and dread flooded through Sarah, and she couldn't help but think of the countless times she had longed to reconnect with Claire while simultaneously fearing what such reconnection might unearth. "How did you know we were here?" Sarah asked, her voice devoid of the warmth she typically delivered to her sister. "A friend told me," Claire replied, her eyes darting among the family members, weighing their reactions. I needed to be here." As silence enveloped them, Sarah grasped at the threads of her own composure. Could the unfolding of their stories still be salvaged, or was it too late? Claire had always possessed an uncanny ability to disrupt the delicate balance in their family, and right now, Sarah could feel the anxiety in her chest tightening like a vice. "Shall we continue?" Her mother finally broke the silence, attempting to reclaim control despite the palpable tension. She gestured for Claire to join them. "Actually," Sarah interjected, feeling a swell of protective instinct rise as she locked eyes with Claire, "I think we should address this first. Claire, you came here for a reason. If sharing our truths is important, then let us not leave your own story on the sidelines." Claire hesitated, sensing the vulnerability in Sarah's challenge. "I haven't been part of this family for a long time," she stated, her voice trembling just slightly. I don't think I have a right to step into your conversation. But we are still family, Sarah urged, her heart racing. We're trying to uncover and embrace everything we've hidden. If you're here to reconnect, then let us not pretend your presence doesn't matter. It's essential to what we're doing. Caught off guard, the rest of the family held their breath in shared anticipation. The truth of shared experiences hovered just out of reach, cloaked in years of unspoken conflicts and unresolved pain. I wanted to hear your stories because I have my own, Claire confessed, glancing sidelong at the family who had once been her entire world. I felt alienated from you all, and I've carried that burden alone. Sarah wanted to scream for Claire's courage but suppressed it, worried that her excitement might trigger resentment. Instead, she maintained eye contact, eager to encourage, hoping Claire could draw upon the same fiery resolve that was lighting their gathering. I've also felt lost, Claire continued, emotions breaking through her facade. After everything the rift, my decisions I thought I was making my own way, but I've been wandering aimlessly, stuck in the past. The admission rippled around the room, each family member processing Claire's vulnerability in their own way. It brought to light their shared wound struggles that had been quietly simmering under their superficial exchanges. Could this newfound openness unlock doors previously thought to be sealed forever? Sarah was filled with a strange mix of hope and dread. Every revelation seemed to peel back layers not just from Claire, but from their collective experience. "Why did you stay away?" she probed, her voice steady, but with an undertone of apprehension. "What made you choose distance over reconciliation?" "I thought staying away would protect us all from more pain," Claire admitted, a single tear escaping down her cheek. A deep silence replaced the words that could have formed debates or defenses. As tension mounted in the room, Sarah felt the potent energy of transformation, yet she also sensed the fragility that surrounded them. Could they truly hold space for each other's truths? Could they withstand the weight of reconciliation? This meeting, rooted in honesty, was becoming the crucible in which old selves were being dissolved and reborn. Yet, looming questions jutted into the air. What else would they discover about one another? What shadows lingered, waiting to emerge? The opening of wounds could lead to healing, but it could also cultivate chaos. As Claire met Sarah's gaze, a silent pact seemed to form. They both understood that the journey ahead demanded courage, the kind that could either redeem or destroy. Yet the faint echo of footsteps reminded Sarah that more truths remained unspoken, perhaps lingering just beyond the door. Her pulse quickened as she anticipated what could come next. Would confrontation ensue? Would they truly be ready for all the stories yet to unfold? The delicate fabric of their familial bond hung in the balance, threading dangerously close to rupture or renewal. With her heart pounding, Sarah felt the atmosphere shift palpably, the air thick with tension woven from vulnerability and fear of discovery. Claire's appearance had transformed the equation, infusing the gathering with unresolved emotion. Sarah's family members unsteadily emerged from their shells, revealing shared struggles obscured for far too long. "Claire," Sarah said, her voice steady, "you're here now, and that's important. We need your voice as we navigate these truths together." As she spoke, old resentments took root in the corners of the room, mingling with the spark of newfound resolve that began to unravel the tightly wound threads of silence. Claire met Sarah's eyes, the raw emotion evident, and began to recount the years-lost tales of her drifting isolation. "Leaving you all felt like the only option, yet I was haunted every day by the fear that I was severing ties I could never repair." Her revelation sent ripples through the room, drawing attention away from dismissive eyes and toward something greater, a shared burden. As each story emerged, tentatively and then with growing strength, Sarah felt a fire inside her, a resolve ignited by the collective bravery of her family. Every disclosed feeling was a step toward liberation. She thought of her grandmother's journal and its powerful legacy. Finally, the generational taboos were being challenged. "Mom," she turned, sensing an opening as her heart filled with compassion for her mother's guardedness. "What if we start embracing honesty instead of hiding our scars? Holding on to them only twists our stories into something unrecognizable." The weight of her mother's silence hung heavy in the air, Each family member shifted their gaze towards her, waiting. "I see both sides," her mother began, hesitance softening her tone. "I've wanted to protect us, but I understand now that cloaking our pain in silence is not the answer. It's time to reassess, to replace denial with understanding." There it was, a measured growth had mounted, catalyzed by the courageous truths that unfurled. With this shift, the dynamics of the family began to transform, establishing a foundation where open dialogue could flourish. A wave of readiness surged within Sarah. "Let us create a living story," she suggested, her voice brimming with possibility. "We can chronicle our revelations, the good, the bad, and the in-between, so future generations can see they're not alone." Doubt flared briefly in her mother's eyes, but it was punctuated by an overwhelming sense of liberation that flooded through the room. Tender glances exchanged, igniting a spark of solidarity. Silence began to transform into resolve. "From this point on," Sarah declared, "we're redefining what it means to be a family. Together, we will reclaim our narrative and celebrate it in all its messy glory." The air quaked with newfound hope. A pulse of unity felt like the growth of roots stretching deeper into the ground, anchoring them in shared purpose. Within seconds, tears mingled with laughter, regrets cohesively transformed into dreams, and shackles of silence gradually loosened. The revitalization cast a warm glow over them, as if they had illuminated a hidden path, guiding them back to each other. As the event progressed to its natural conclusion, Sarah looked into Claire's eyes, seeing a reflection not of the past but of potential. Step by step, they transcended the shadows. The weight of reconciliation hung gentle in the air, ripe for their grasp. In this moment, Sarah could finally embrace the realization more powerful than any familial bond. Her worth was not defined by their perceptions or close-shackled judgments. She was more than a reflection in their adoring eyes. She was an architect of her truth, armed with an unyielding commitment to uphold the very values she had long cherished. As the meeting adjourned, the fragmented conversations coalesced into the harmony of shared stories, a tapestry beautifully woven from resolve, understanding, and courage. They exited the venue transformed, rising from the ashes of historical pain into a family reborn, and as Sarah stepped into the light outside, she felt a wave of relief crash over her. She had taken a stand not only for her own identity, but for everyone who had long been ensnared in the web of silence. The warmth of released burdens enveloped her, proclaiming that the future was ripe for revelation. Sarah had achieved a tangible personal evolution, grounding herself firmly in her truth. She emerged with newfound confidence, recognized competence, and an established position, not merely as an individual bound to familial legacies, but as a beacon of hope guiding others toward journeying through their own storms. As she turned back to glance at her family, laughter echoed in the air, the unmistakable sounds of healing reverberating. Together, having embraced the tenderness of open hearts, they had laid down the foundation of a legacy rich in authenticity. Now, as you reflect on Sarah's remarkable journey of transformation, remember the importance of supporting incredible narratives. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Your voice matters. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for personal overcoming stories, and don't wait even one more second to share.